Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Andrew again. We're diving into 4.3 today. So, everyone, let's open up our Do Now. Last class, we learned about what a div was and how it organized and grouped different content onto the page using nesting. And also, y'all learned about parent and children elements. So, we're going to take a look at our Do Now and just follow the directions on the left. So first thing we want to do is nest the two div elements, green child and blue child, under a parent element of pink parent. So looking over here in our HTML, I'm just going to X out of this just so we can actually see it. We want to give a parent div to these two div classes here. So here we're going to do pink parent, close that, and then let's not forget indent, so it's like organized, and see like how where I put the div, the closing div tag, it's aligned with the parent, the opening one. So you can see that like right here. So now you don't see anything on the page. Next thing we want to do is add the padding. Actually, no, let's add a background color. You can actually see where the pink parent is on the page. You can't see it. Why can't we see it? It's because we don't have padding, so we won't be able to actually see like what's in between there. So add the padding, give it 25px, and voila, we can actually see the parent tag and like where it is on the page. It's like it's that section on the page. It has like the green and blue child elements inside of that. And then for the last thing we want to do is we want to add, we want to make sure that all of the div elements on the page have a margin property of 10px. So we already have the selector here with div. Now this is going to select all of the divs, regardless of if it's a parent or a child, and it's going to give them a margin of 10px, as you can see. So the parent element 10px from like the outside, and then the margin between the green child and blue child. So that is the do now. Make sure that you have completed that. And today, coders will use Flexbox to align. We'll use Flexbox to align elements horizontally on a web page. And our vocabulary for today is display property, Flexbox, justify content property, and align. So just to recap, what were the four components of the box model? Okay, I'm hearing a few different answers out there. I heard content, border, that's the border on the outside over here, padding, and margin. And remember what each of these are doing. If you need a recap, feel free to go back to 4.1 to get a refresher. This is what we learned 4.2. So this box model allows for you to style using the border, margin, and padding on the page. And then the divs that we learned about last class helps us create different sections on the page. And they're kind of empty boxes within a bigger boxes. And we do that through nesting. And that's kind of like how that's where we are today. So we learned how to do all these things, and so we're going to learn more about how to improve the layout of our page, particularly by having things move horizontally using Flexbox. So Flexbox is like a collection of CSS properties that allow for you to align and organize HTML elements on a page. It allows for you to kind of make access different websites on your phone and your laptop and a bigger TV screen or a tablet, not every code that you write will look the same. And so will look the same on an actual screen. So using Flexbox allows for any screen to kind of adjust and kind of show up in a way that makes sense for your page. And so there are three things that you should know about Flexbox. One, these are the steps. So the first step is you want to nest the elements in a parent div. So you need to have a parent in order for this to work. The parent needs to be present. Second, you want to use display flex on the rule, you want to use display flex rule on the parent, only in the parent though. And display, that's the property, and flex, that's the value. And then lastly, we want to use the justify content property on the parent div tag as well. All of this will make a lot of sense in a moment. So step one, when we're using Flexbox, we need to nest them inside of a parent element, so like a div. So we have dogs, cats, and hamsters here, but we don't have a parent. So that's why we wanted to create a parent, and we named that Let's Flex. So here, these are the children elements, and then the parent element is Let's Flex, and then like the closing tag over here. So that's step one. Step two, we want to turn on Flexbox in our CSS using the CSS rule on the parent element. So if you remember, we said that the second step, you had to say display flex, and we're doing that using the selector of the parent. And the parent element is right here, Let's Flex. Remember, we have the dot because it's a class. And so when we do that, as soon as we put in display flex, it's going to turn everything on within that that parent element into, it's going to align all of the children horizontally. And that's like the basic, like you're just making things go horizontal. But you also want to make it look good. You also want to make it look good on the page. So that's what justify content as a property is going to be able to do. So right below where we said display flex, we want to use justify content to align it how you want it horizontally. You don't just want it horizontal and it's just there. You also want it to be, maybe you want it in the center, or maybe you want it towards the right side of the page, or if you want some space in between, that's where you do it. So recap, you hit the selector for the parent, and then add the display flex. That's pretty much just like the switch. Like you add display flex, it's going to go horizontal. And then we add some styling with justify content, and then you can add the different things here. Here are just like a few different values that you can use. So you can say justify content start, and I guess that's already like the default. That's what it's going to look like. You could do center. You could do flex end, and it pushes everything to the right. You could do space between, and then space around. Notice that these are pretty similar, and you can kind of see the subtle differences. So recap. First thing, nest the elements in a parent div. Second, use display flex on that parent div. And then third, use justify content property on the parent div. So lightning question, what is the parent element in the HTML code that we see over here? What's the parent? Okay, good. I heard that you said container. That's the parent, right? This whole aspect over here, that's the parent element. Second question, to turn on Flexbox and align elements horizontally, what is the CSS property and value that we must use on the parent element? Correct. If you said display flex, you are correct. Awesome. And then lastly, which of the following will align the child elements to the right. Flex start, flex end, or center. Good. If you said flex end, you are correct. And then, we had a few more questions. So, how do you apply Flexbox to a group of elements here? So we have all this code. First things first, let's just figure out what the parent is. So what's the parent? The parent is Big Blue. So when we go into our CSS, we are selecting the Big Blue class, and then we are also using display flex to make sure things go horizontally. And if we want to center everything that we have just created horizontally, we just add one more line. That's justify content center. And say you want some space between those Flexbox elements, you just do justify content space between and space around, and notice the difference. It's just, yeah, it's really subtle. Space between just has the space between like on the page, and then space around is the space around the edges. So now let's move into our guided practice. I'm gonna move a little bit faster, but if you need to rewatch this, feel free to do so. Okay, so now we want to nest the 3 div elements into a parent div. So we see here we have 3 child elements, and they need a parent. So let's give them a parent. Div class, what should we name it? Let's just say parent. Sounds about right. Remember, you can name it whatever you want. And actually, before we add the closing, I want to hit tab on that. And then now I want to align. Yeah, you can see it better this way. I want to align with the opening div tag and move that over. Voila. So now we got the parent and we got our children. So now we want to go into the CSS and we want to apply Flexbox to the actual page over here. So we are going to go to the first line of code that we see here. The name of the class is parent, opening curly and closing curly. First things first, display flex. And then now, if you notice, okay, you kind of noticed that, things went from vertical to horizontal, but it doesn't look the best. But I actually want to show you one more thing. If I add background color, let's say yellow, you can actually see that's the whole parent. That's like the big box, right? And then inside that big box, you have like three child elements. And then now this looks kind of dull. I actually want it to be centered on the page. So I'm going to use justify content and then just center, and voila. Now it's centered and it looks so much better. And if we wanted to kind of play around with the different values, you can do space around and notice what happens. Space between, pretty cool. So you get the gist. You can mess around with that. Just check out that slide with the different types of values for justify content. So now let's move into our independent work time. So you have been hired by the CEO of BuzzFeed to redesign their really boring page. And this is a really cool opportunity because you're going to be applying the skill that you just learned. This is real. This is how professionals actually do this. So now let's move into this pop code telling you prepare yourself because it looks super, super, super dull. This is what it looks like. This is just whack. We have to do something. So for each of these sections, we want you to create a menu design that looks cooler than what it does right now. And remember how we're doing this. First things first, we need to create the parent tag for this group of code. So do this up here, and maybe you can put wherever you want. If you want to include the sample one in that div, feel free to do that, but you can also just do that right here, add your parent. And the parent class, we want to give it menu1, and then you're also going to do the same thing for each of the sections, and make sure that when you're in the CSS, you're applying the same things: display flex, justify content, make it look nice, and just follow the other directions here. If you have any other questions about how to use Flexbox, just refer back to the slides or reach out to a volunteer if you're really stuck. And that's about it. But make these menu bars look cool. Take some time with it. Make it look really nice. Go to the BuzzFeed website to get some ideas. So that's all for today. I'm going to move into our closing activity. Y'all are really coding out here. I love it. So make sure that you submit your assignment to Google Classrooms. And so now, if the whole purpose of this class is to use Flexbox to actually align elements horizontally on a page, now you know how to do that. So the exit ticket, how can you align the child elements horizontally on this web page using Flexbox? Remember the 3 key steps. If you forgot those, just refer back to the slides and submit your answer into Google Classrooms. And that's it for today. I appreciate you for sticking around and for everything that you do. You are valued and you are appreciated. Cool. I'll see you 4.4.